Hello and welcome to another episode of the Silver and Black Coffee Hour. We are a Spurs podcast based in Austin, Texas. And man, what a good week it is to be a Spurs podcast based in Austin, Texas. Because the Spurs are in Austin, Texas. It is Spurs week in Austin, Texas. I know I am very excited about it. Aaron Blackerby, I know you're excited about it. Zach Montana. We've already been to some Spurs week events. We just talked to Harrison Barnes at a unveiling of a new park with some new courts. They're dunkable rims. They're heavy duty, and
very forgiving,
very soft,
very forgiving.
Soft basketballs. I'm still waiting for you to send me that video, Zach. I swished a three right in his grill. And, I know I looked good at it.
We're you blocked him. Now you switch it. I don't think you're allowed on the court with AD ever again.
No. I survive when I'm on the court with AB.
Oh,
AB is a hooper.
You hit a three in my face yesterday. I hit a three in a row.
No. Just in jet. The camera was rolling and I put a shot up, and it's just not often that my jump shot form gets argumented.
Yeah. I saw you swish a three from a Harrison Barnes part of the court. Yeah. Like it was a corner three. I saw Tom launch it.
Let me
went right.
We'll throw it in here for viewers and maybe some clips of Harrison Barnes as well. And if you haven't seen it yet, we also talked to Brandon James with the Spurs, Senior Vice President for Strategic Growth and also the team's General Counsel. Basically one of the main architects of the Spurs' efforts to engage this Austin community. It's something that I've spent a lot of time reporting on and thinking about as a journalist, but also as somebody who lives in this city and cares very deeply about Spurs basketball. And it's great knowing that I'm not the only one, and that the team's efforts to engage this community are bearing fruit. So during that interview, Zach asked, I think, a really cool question to Brandon about where he sees this partnership, in 2030, right? Years from now, what is the goal here? And I want to just throw that clip in here just for all of you guys.
It's the year 2035. Where do you see the Spurs and the partnership in Austin at that point?
That's a great question. And how I'll answer it is probably different than how, if you ask 5 people in the organization, they're going to say something different. I think from a city perspective, or from a region's perspective, I should say, and you sort of hit the nail on the head, the two cities are going to merge into one big metroplex. That's going to happen whether you like it or not. And so what we're trying to do is sort of be the tip of the spear. What better way to bring communities together than sports? And we've done a really good job of getting at the front of that and having these cities who are drastically different from one another see some commonality, and us being that commonality has been really cool and also a real honor. I'd love to play more games here in Austin. As you guys know, we're talking with the city and county in San Antonio to build a new arena in San Antonio. So there's some negotiating to do. This is a business at the end of the day. So making sure that we do what's right for our stakeholders in San Antonio, but also making sure that we're keeping an eye on the prize, and that's being sort of fiscally aggressive, sort of making sure financial strength is a part of everything we do. And having Austin claim San Antonio Spurs as their NBA team is a big piece of our financial strength component. So we'd be remiss if we didn't spend time on figuring out how we expand our brand here in Austin.
So yeah, really grateful to Brandon for all of the time that he spent with us. He's an incredibly smart guy. He understands the cap and the second apron, and I asked him about it, and he went really into it on the basketball side, as well as the really interesting business and community case for engaging Austin. So if you care about basketball as a business and want some insight into what the Spurs are doing, check that out. It's really, really fascinating stuff. But yeah, on to the basketball that we've seen in the last week. Some regulation, some exhibition, some Kevin Hart talking.
A lot of commercials.
Breaking the rules.
A lot of commercials.
A lot of commercials. Mr. Beast involved for some reason. And rule bending and breaking and rim breaking and bending. It was a funnish week of basketball, ups and downs from the regular season to All-Star game.
I guess. I mean, I think we should have smoked the Wizards a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
3/4 of that Celtics game were interesting. Stephon Castle taking All-Star Weekend seriously was cool.
Yes.
Wemby and Chris Paul showing some gamesmanship was fascinating. And whatever the hell last night's All-Star game was, well, that's actually in Chinese food. I love the poo-poo platter, but this was a different type of poo-poo platter last night.
There was a smattering of basketball things that happened, but let's start with the real games. The Wizards game, like you mentioned, Aaron, a 10-point win for the Spurs on the road, which, you know, in any case, you're like, yay, Spurs won on the road by 10. Cool. Except it's the Wizards, and, you know, they're quite stinky, and this was a little closer and a little uglier than it probably should have been. But it was also the first game of Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox each scoring 30 points or more as teammates. And I think in that, it was a very good example of what this team can look like when they're both on. So, Zach, I'm going to start with you. What were some of your takeaways from this one?
Or second quarter from the Spurs made it way too close. But as I said, you hit the nail on the head. 61 points from the boys, the two big guys that you expect to show up every night. I think that's what we said is the recipe for success is when those two guys score 50-plus points, what does the rest of the team need to do? Well, they don't need to do a lot. They just need to be consistent. We need to have one guy show up. And once again, it's a win. With the end of the week that they had with the two losses that they dealt with, that second quarter really made me nervous because you're like, oh no, here we go again. They're going to lose their reins. They're going to, lose control of this game. They necessarily never really lost control of the game. But at the end of the day, it was a lot closer than need be. But a win's a win. You take what you can get. It's a road win in the NBA. It doesn't matter who you play. And we've seen that it really doesn't matter who the Spurs are playing because it could be a win or a loss. So I'm happy for the win.
I think what I took from it was to finally see someone putting so much rim pressure and getting the calls with De'Aaron Fox getting 18 free throws in that game. Further Wemby looking a little more healthier. The other thing out of it, stand up. Jeremy Sohan looks like he's coming back around to form. I would like to see him obviously play some more minutes because I think his energy is super helpful, and we're still at a rebounding deficiency as a whole. But honestly, solid win. Good to see, Wemby and Fox can get 30 points together. Not much else to take away from this game other than road win in Washington. We were hoping this was the get right game. It was the get right game. Tom, what do you got?
The thing I think that we have to drill down on is they did kind of lose control a bit in the middle there after they had built a gigantic lead. And, that happens. Modern NBA teams come back, especially home teams. I understand that. But the specifics of where it went wrong were something that we talked about on the last show, which was the no point guard minutes on a team where you've got De'Aaron Fox and Chris Paul. Those two guys can play together, and they will play some together. But I'm struggling to understand why we're still seeing lineups thrown out there with neither of them. And I said that, and people responded by dumping on the, interim head coach who, I just think it's like a interesting and kind of funny, there needs to be some cognitive dissonance to be like, this guy is 100% in control of all of this and also a complete moron. That's probably not, there's probably some nuance here, right? And I'm genuinely seeking to understand that nuance. if you want to get Steph Castle more on-ball reps, I get that. Letting him, work with the second unit, sure. But he plays better when he has some more structure around him, I think. And the team certainly plays better if he is not the sole creator in that, off the dribble sense on the floor. So yeah, I was watching it and I was like, it doesn't matter because it's the Wizards, but these are ugly minutes. And then it started to matter against the Wizards. It definitely mattered against the Celtics. You go into the defending champs building, you drop a Duke on the parquet floor in that first quarter, and then can never really dig out of that hole. Something that I looked at the stats in this one, the Celtics had 6 made threes in that first quarter. Missoula ball is very real. The Spurs had 9 made threes for the entire basketball game. Fellas, let's go quick on this stinker. Aaron, what were your thoughts here?
I actually took some positives from this game despite what happened in the first quarter. One, this team did fight back. It showed fight until it got about out of hand near the end. Something really interesting. So I was out of town last week, and so I got to watch the replay. And sometimes when watching the replay, there's just kind of a different mentality than like what's going to happen next. It's like I already know the outcome of the game, so I'm seeing like what transpired to like get this. And one of the interesting things I saw from this though is Wemby was put in a lot of pick and roll action at the top of its key. And one of the things that the Spurs have typically been doing in that situation is, we talked about this before, Zach, you made a point at it on the last episode, like we funnel him towards the paint. A really nice adjustment I saw on this, though, was they were switching everything, even with Wemby at the perimeter. And I really like that adjustment here. And part of the reason for that is that Wemby's margin of error on the defensive side is so much larger than everyone else on the court because of the space that he can cover. So even if you put him at the top of the key with his 8-foot wingspan, that's still a lot of arm length to go around, even if he can't keep up with the speed. I was bullish on that because one of the things I think we've seen with this team throughout the year is how we go under picks and then threes are shot over them. And if we're looking at like the top defenses in the league right now, we don't have the athleticism of like the Houston Rockets or OKC to really fight through those picks. But we do have a guy that's trying to be the defensive player of the year that can switch on those. And so that's something that I really took from this, that I was like, oh, that's interesting. And further, there were a couple of, De'Aaron Fox is still getting, his legs under him with this team. There's a couple of different offensive skill sets that I'm starting to see and cuts that he can make with his speed that I will be interested to see some more backdoor cuts from him out on the wing. There's just like little shades of that. And at this point with the season going where it is, I'm looking for what can be elaborated on for, the last third of the season. So maybe I'm a little positive here, but I was kind of expecting a loss. We really just lost it in the first quarter, and I thought it was kind of a fascinating game from there. Dak, what do you got on this one?
AB, they actually ran him backdoor off a Wemby play a few games ago. I forgot what game it was exactly. So it's a good catch right there because it was something that they had caught on to, and with the speed. Tommy mentioned the 3-pointers. They shot 18 in the first quarter. I mean, the Spurs shot 38 the whole game. They basically had half the amount of attempts in one quarter as the Spurs had the whole game. They out-rebounded the Spurs by 18. I mean, they're a good team. We're talking about the defending champs, and the fact that the Spurs stuck around is because they only turned the ball over 8 times. They played good basketball. They didn't play bad basketball. It wasn't like those sloppy offensive hoops. I think you just run into a buzzsaw that knows exactly how they want to play. In the right situations, they get themselves in great looks. There are times when they get offensive rebounds and they're open to go for a layup and they fly the ball out to someone wide open for a 3-point attempt. It is an impressive game to watch. It might not be your style of basketball to watch if you're an older head of the NBA type fan, but I will say that Boston has a very unique style of play and they know how to play it. So you better know what you're getting into. If not, they're gonna run you out of the gym. That's what happened.
Celtics 55 threes 55. In this game, and like it's not like they're just dribbling down the court and chucking. They're running fast and good offense to get these good shots.
Mhm.
Great team, tough matchup. Good on you, Celtics. And that brings us to the All-Star break, which I think was needed for this Spurs team. You know, I think you could kind of see some tired legs and some fatigue, especially from the star player, Victor Wembanyama, who didn't get as much of a break, although he did. What was it? He was in his hotel room, like tucked in, watching the Rising Stars game on Friday night, not wanting to take away from his teammate Steph Castle's moment. Um, and in that moment, Steph Castle won MVP of the Rising Stars Challenge on the winning team, and took that team to play on Sunday night in whatever that was. But yeah, Steph Castle, I think, understood the assignment in this one. He was competitive and he was showing off, and he was showing off by how competitive he was. So, um, and this is the first like All-Star weekend participation, like at it, we've had 3 in a row now, Rising Stars games, but this was like really, really awesome performance. Zach, what did you see from the kid?
I saw a lot of personality. That's what I told. I think I made a comment to AB the other day, that I saw a lot of personality from Steph that we hadn't seen before, and I think these events allow these guys to open up. They're mic'd up. They get to be a little, show their real true colors, and I think that was the coolest part for me. Was the Steph I've seen for the past 6-7 months is this very stoic, very emotionless unless he dunks on you, and even then it's more like a not like I'm a funny guy. Whereas we had some funny moments where he was talking to Grady Dick. He was mic'd up and he said, "Oh, they switched me on you. I get you. You're not allowed to score anymore." And Grady Dick said, "Well, it was fun while it lasted." They had this good little back and forth with each other. And so for me, that was the coolest part. Obviously, I know he's a great athlete. I knew he was going to perform well. He does it on the big stage every night. It was just nice to see this personality that he has, and a very likable guy too. People get along with, and a good character. That was my takeaway from it.
Good character, kind of the leader of that team. I know, Tom, we just talked about like these non-point guard minutes with Castle, with Fox and CP3, but Castle was the one running the offense for them. He was really the facilitator. I mean, I think overall he kind of won All-Star Weekend, all things being said, between his Rising Stars performance. I mean, he carried them in that second game, especially. And then further, going into the dunk contest, he had some really cool stuff. Now, I have it on good authority that he did not bust out a couple of things that he had shown in practice to some of the other beat reporters. But, we could debate whether, having props or not having props is a thing. I thought it was at least an entertaining game, and especially the through the legs after the basket made dunk, amazing. And I thought really showcased off his athleticism that, I mean, I didn't even think was there when the season began.
The dunk contest was extremely fun. I don't think we mentioned that he hit the game winner in that first Rising Stars game, and it looked super duper smooth. I mean, it was a snatchback, and in the slow mo, it's like his hair like whooshes to the front of his face, and the defender's like created the space, hit the shot, fantastic. And then took it to the dunk contest. All 3 nights of All-Star Weekend, he was performing, and in the dunk contest, I mean, that's interesting to know that he had more in the bag, apparently. And it's like those first 2 dunks felt kind of like, they were great dunks, but they weren't like, it wasn't the kind of dunks that would get a unanimous 50. It was the kind of dunks that would get you through to the next round by doing enough.
They were confidence builder dunks, and I think that's kind of like a good thing with the dunk contest as a whole, is like, just put the ball in the hole. That's really what people want to see. first and foremost, Andre Jackson Jr. have like a hard time doing that. Matas, who I thought, and he was attempting the dunk I've seen him do on YouTube before, that running through the legs under. I mean, you just got to put it in. And I do think one thing I will take from the dunk contest, is that Steph Castle is not afraid of the moment. He rises to the moment. I do think that why we see like these dudes missing dunks and things like that is because it's a little more nerve wracking. You have the entire stadium or the entire arena looking at you, and you do want to show off. And he wanted to show off, but he also rose to the occasion of it. So if I'm going to take anything from an exhibition weekend, I will take that.
No, I mean, and the dunk that he made off the made layup, where he collects the ball and East bays it and goes over the top. That was one that he had missed a few times, and I think that's why it wasn't a unanimous 50 and we didn't get a dunk off. But usually when a guy misses the first 3-4 attempts and is staring down the barrel of not making any, he'll switch it up and try to just get one down, right? He did not do that. He was like, no, I've practiced this. I know I can do this. I'm going to do it. And he did it. And so that level of self-confidence to do that thing that he had struggled with, like, I thought that was it was a really amazing dunk. But it was the mentality of like, no, I'm not backing down from this. I'm going to dunk this ball through this hoop the way I want to.
Well,
that was really
first game of the season, we kind of figured he was a dog when he wanted free throws to win games, So this is no different. And to go carry on what you're saying, Tom, that might have been one of my favorite dunks I think I've seen in a dunk contest in a long time. Bias with it being a Spurs player, everything going along with it. I wanted to see him win so bad. That non-50 was so tough not to see him get right there. I'm not going to harp too much about it, but it did make me mad. So AB knows, he was with me that night. He knows I was a little annoyed. Just a little bit.
A little salty, but then, you put that salt on your tequila shot and you were fine, So
I think people got on Mac McClung perhaps a bit unfairly, calling him things like a G League player and a prop merchant and stuff like this. And I will say the one with the ladder where the guy's holding the ball halfway in the rim, that don't impress me much. But I mean, you roll out the Kia and you jump over it. That man is risking his life to entertain us.
I saw the video. Yeah, I saw the video of him with it. He has it in the gym. The Spurs would never allow a Kia on the basketball court.
He kind of vaults himself on when people hold, like, that's why they have like two hands, I think he's kind of known how to game the system as like a compact king to be able to do that, which is fine. But enough about the dunk contest. Let's talk about what everybody was buzzing about Saturday night. And knowing that Victor Wembanyama, maybe he's going to Trinity University on the side. They have an excellent law program. Just going by the true letter of the law for the skills competition. If the NBA, I mean, this was a real egg on the NBA's face moment for most of the weekend. And I want to just say this about the skills challenge. First off, have you seen some of the bullshit people throw up when they get fouled? I mean, those get as much as attempts. Now, Chris Paul, you probably should have at least hit the backboard. I think things would have been a little more in the spirit. But obviously, as a biased fan, I thought it was hilarious, and it definitely made a mockery of it. But for the NBA to also not allow them to be interviewed was,
well, so
I don't know, it was funny.
So people were confused about that. They were like, "Why is the NBA taking this so seriously? It's All-Star Weekend. Let's just have a little fun. Let them redo it. Whatever. Let Allie LaForce do the interview. Come on." You can only watch the games on FanDuel Sports Network. People have money on this. Like, seriously. But like, I got a whole rant on this. So Zach, I'm gonna let you get your thoughts on this, and then
I just love that my young star will do anything to win. That's all that matters to me. He just sees a trophy. He doesn't care how he's got to get to it. He will do anything and everything. And you know what? To me, that's a winner, and I'll stick with that.
So, all right, here, like, I understand that. I understand commending the mindset. I understand win at all costs, right? But here's the thing. When you thumb your nose at the establishment, when you give yourself no plausible deniability, you have to know that your attempt to win is going to get you disqualified from the competition. It's gonna you have no chance of doing that. And here's why. If you're bending the rules, all the kids at home, this is what you need, right? One, plausible deniability. Very important. We've talked about it on this show before. The ability to say, oh, that's not what I was doing. I was doing something else. I just shot the shots really fast. They weren't very good shots because I was trying to go fast, but they were jump shots, right? You need some of that. That's what Chris Paul has to do. Pull him aside and say, hey, I love where your head's at. I am a psycho like you, but let's do it in a way that they can't yell at us about it. Because if we make them look stupid, they're like, hey, we're making a mockery of the NBA this All-Star weekend, not you guys. You're upstaging us, right? And two, it's got to look cool, right? Like when Ross Chastain did the Hail Melon, he needed to make up some spots on the last lap. What did he do? He put it against the outside wall. He put the hammer down until he saw God or the checkered flag. It was sick. NASCAR was like, that was awesome. Nobody can ever do that again because it was so dangerous, and everyone will just do that and it'll be a mess. Outlawed. Great job. We're going to use that on all the sizzle reels. Cool. And the result stood. Because it was sick. If Vic figured out how to dunk from the 3-point line, they would be like, I don't know if that's allowed, but it was awesome. This looked goofy.
It looked goofy. But speaking of things that look goofy, Tom, let's talk about the All-Star game or the 3-hour commercial fest last night. I'm just going to Zach, I'm going to let you cook first. Why don't you tell me about what you thought about last night's game?
Dude, just let them score 150 fucking points. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, like, why are we limiting these athletes to like a scoreboard of 40? Me and the boys could go out and put 40 points in not a lot of time, 2s and 3s. Like, so to sit there and act like NBA players aren't going to score 40 very quickly is like, that is stupid. Very dumb. But Charles Barkley was right to Draymond's Green rant saying like, y'all made a mockery of it. So now they had to do something to fix it. So they're trying to do these. It's very simple. If you're worried about them scoring too much, okay, limit the quarters down to 8-minute quarters, high school quarters, running clock. Cool, whatever. It'll be very quick. Yes, but these guys are going to tire themselves out. They're going to run up and down the court a few times, get their alley-oops. Everyone's going to see the highlights they want to see, do your concert, and call it a day. This 10-minute TNT break, when they're not even going anywhere, they're like going to be on broadcast next year. They're literally going to be on broadcast NBA games next season. So it just doesn't make sense why we're just.
Let me interrupt you here, Zach. Let me interrupt you here. I'm going to tell you a little conspiracy theory I thought of more about this. Not sure how much I believe this, but the more I think about it, the more I believe it. I think TMT purposely tanked the All-Star game because it was their last All-Star game. There's no way anybody thought that that was a good product that they put out there. And David Zaslav, known tinkerer of things to his own benefit, I think was just like, oh, let's just drive down the interest in the overall All-Star game and put out this shit sandwich of a product. And I think TNT was driving down the interest. I think it was a giant. I at first wanted to blame Adam Silver, and on some way I do still blame Adam Silver. But I think at the end of the day, this comes from the TNT broadcasting side of things. Tom, to your point on having some sort of plausible deniability, did they play the game? You could say they played a game. Was there better effort in the game? Sure, there was better effort. I mean, Wemby was trying some, and even at his not trying, he still swatted KD. And when he really tried because he got pissed off that Cade Cunningham got past him, he blocked him too. So I think that TNT purposely tanked their broadcast last night.
I will go off of that by saying that TNT's coverage of the NBA, Shaq asked last night, he's like, were you not entertained? And it's like, I have been very entertained by Inside the NBA. It's been fun for me to watch as a fan for some time. But like, you guys got a segment called Who He Play For, you know, where you're like, you know, talking about how you don't know where guys are at. You've been talking down on these guys on the modern NBA.
They were shitting on people over the overhead mics, and then they break up the championship game for a 20-minute break where they're like, oh, thank you to the players. You guys like mean so much to us. And it's like, you are literally comparing just now Wemby and Bull. Like, what is happening? And like, how many more jokes do we need that Kevin Hart is short? Apparently I didn't know that until last night. Like, terrible product. And I'm telling you, I'm kind of
AB,
I'm
you're not wrong. Like, you might be onto something. Like, it's almost like they told Kevin Hart to be the worst person on the mic in the past 20 years. Like, they literally said, show up drunk and just send it. And that's literally what it sounded like, dude. Like, it literally sounded like he was just rambling. They were telling us.
They were rambling. Once again, like, one of the main tenets that we try to have on this podcast is that we are an appreciator of the modern game. We are also an appreciator of the past game. And for Kevin Hart to be saying, like, what are all these big guys doing shooting? I'm like, bro, do you even watch the games? Like, Cat is going to shoot threes. Wemby is going to shoot threes. Nikola Jokic shoots threes. It is a part of the pace and space era that we're in. And for you to keep bringing back like 90s, like, get in the paint, big man BS, it's just annoying. I'm really looking forward to hopefully some other broadcast, maybe NBC, of having people that like appreciate the modern game. Hopefully, but I understand kind of like clickbaity stuff. We should not like go on much longer.
I just want to say that like the NBA coverage environment needs more appreciators of the game. Like, I love Kevin Garnett, for example. When he's talking about these guys, he's giving them props. He's showing love. He's appreciating that the game of basketball is being played at the highest level it's ever been played right now. And I think that's something that the presenters of this product and the creators of it sometimes fail to understand, is that the fans of this product, the fans of NBA basketball, enjoy basketball. Like, it's a fun sport. It can be, it should be. Yeah, I could not, like, I was trying to listen to some of the broadcasts, and then I was like, you know what, man? There's 20 to go at Daytona right now. Like, I'm gonna listen to some guys from the Carolinas talk about stock cars over this, right? And the hockey had guys beating the crap out of each other. You know, like, it's just for funsies and for the honor of their country, right? Like, it was yeah, it was disappointing. I think that I do feel I've got to say some like there were fun moments in this game, right? The Wemby playing defense. I like that's what the game needs. Let Wemby play defense. Like, you know, that's fun. But yeah, it was cool that there was so much Spurs involvement in this weekend. And hopefully, Wemby didn't exert himself too much in the exhibition.
Well, I'm glad that we all are appreciators of the modern game, and we have strong opinions about this because we care. That's why. So if anybody's like misinterpreting that, I just want y'all to know, like, we care about this, not just from a Spurs standpoint, but like the game is better than it's ever been, with more athleticism than we've ever seen, and sometimes not. So all that being said, we have the Spurs coming up with about 30 games left in the season. We are 3.5 games as of this recording out from the 10th spot. We have a game against a team that is ahead of us in the standings in Phoenix Suns this week in Austin. But before we jump into our week preview, we're going to talk about a couple of questions we have for the upcoming week. And so I'll just start this off with you guys and asking you, like, we have about 2/3 of the season done. Last third, what do you want to see from this team? What would make you feel good about seeing from this team going into potential play-in or the offseason?
I guess a good example would be the Houston team last year, how they made a great run towards the end of the season, really fought to get into that play-in spot, didn't make it, ended up being the 11th seed, but gained a lot of momentum and showed that they were figuring out how to win towards the end of the season. I just would like to see some consistency from the Spurs, whether it be offensive end, defensive end. I just want to see some games where I leave and I'm saying, wow, they really put 3 game stretch together where you felt really comfortable with what you're seeing. If they make the playoffs, great. They make the play-in, great. I would like, because this is a long-term thing. This isn't just some short-term one season with De'Aaron Fox. This is a long-term, like, they have a long-term goal. And of course, our short-term mindset is to be great right now, but you just want to see improvement. I want to see some consistency, and that's just a very easy answer.
I want to see them sort of perfect the two-man game, not necessarily in the sense of the way De'Aaron Fox and Wemby play together on the court. That'll come with time. Like you said, Zach, that is a, measured in years type of project. I think I want to see the rotations tightened a bit to make sure that there is stability all throughout, to make sure that there is a star player on the court all throughout. And you talked about, making a run to close the season. I think that play-in is going to be right around 500, despite how deep the West is right now. I think that a 500 team is going to get that 10th slot. So the question for me with 30 games remaining is, can the Spurs finish 18-16? It's a tall order, right? You'd have to get hot. You'd have to play pretty well. But it's also not outside the realm of possibility, especially after adding a player the caliber of De'Aaron Fox, who addresses so many shortcomings of the team and helps put everybody else in a position to succeed. So I want to see those things ironed out, and I hope that if that happens, I think that if that happens, they'll be close to 500 by the end of the year. Aaron, what about you?
Hey, I'm with Zach in the consistency angle, but I'll probably broaden it to, I just want to see energy consistency throughout the year. There is, I think in the path to progression in the NBA, when people reach the mountaintop, they kind of know what it took to get there, and they're able to pace themselves through the season. I think even when players know what it takes to get to the playoffs, they know how to pace themselves for the season to get there. Our team, I think sometimes this year has played like they know the pace of that, and they've come out slow, and then they don't. And so I want to see kind of that energy consistently to do that. I'd love to see more Jeremy minutes. I want to see Fox and Wemby's chemistry. Devin Vassell, I'd love to see you become 18-point per game scorer consistently these last part of the game. So that's really what I want to see.
Yeah, I think everybody settling into their roles too. Like what does everybody look like with De'Aaron Fox on this team? And I think that should help Devin Vassell be in a more efficient scoring space and, hopefully get some numbers like that. Jeremy Sohan, his role. This is, I think, sort of a good segue into the next part here, which is, who are your guys' top 3 Spurs for the season to this point? And Aaron, you wrote this question down and you asked the question graded, right? And so my question for you, a point of clarification, as our friend Brandon James put it, are we grading on a curve? Are we grading according to expectations, or are we grading overall, these have been the 3 best players on the Spurs this year?
I guess I would say grading on a curve of their expectations is how I would phrase that. Not everybody has superstar expectations on this team. Not everybody has all-star expectations on this team. Personally, Wemby, I think, has had a B+ season. I think his January probably knocked him from that A tier when we saw in December. And he still has, obviously, he's still the greatest guy that's on the court. But if we're grading him on a curve to what we believe his potential to be, he's, not fully meeting expectations. I think Stephon Castle has been a solid, A- overall, especially with these recent 4 games where he's now coming off the bench again, where he seems to have a better mentality about it, where maybe previously when he was on the bench, he was looking at it as demotion. So I'll give that. The third person that I will grade on a curve, and I'm also going to give him an A- overall on the season, is Harrison Barnes. Not just because we just saw him, but the dude is practically shooting 50% from the corner. So when you see Harrison Barnes miss essentially 1 corner 3, and he gets it in that same spot again, it's going in. And that has been the case. He's done everything that's really been asked of him as, the role player that he is. He has guarded, he's been a small ball 5 for the team. He's been the Iron Man on the team. There was that game against the Lakers where they were like, Harrison Barnes, go pick on Austin Reeves. And he showed people what to do. He's been a really great professional for the team. So if those were the guys that I would say top 3 for me and curve to their expectations, that's who I'd put. And I'd surprisingly, with his probably last month and a half, I'd have Keldon up there too. And I don't say that lightly, especially seeing kind of his isolation scoring numbers and drives to the basket. It's pretty valuable skill set you need when coming off the bench. What do you guys got?
For me, I think you hit the nail on the head with Wemby. I maybe a B++ for Wemby, just for circumstance reasons. I think the travel and my bias opinion will say that there is a lot going on this past month and a half for him, just in basketball, with being in France. I still think there was in the back of his mind, he wanted to make sure he was on the court for those games in France. So not that he eased off, but there was just, hey, I want to be ready to go for those games. And he did show out for those games, so never mad at him about that. My second was Stephon Castle. I honestly give him an A, no minus, just a straight A for what I've seen from him. On and off the court, fantastic basketball player for his age, and the upside from what I see in him is just good. Is it a steal of the draft if he's the number 4 pick? I don't know. But he's been fantastic. I don't know when you can start saying people are a steal of the draft or what number that is, but there was 3 people picked in front of him, and he's played better than all 3 of those players. So, and that's just the way I look at that. And then my surprise pick, especially after the last few conversations that we've had about lineups and what's going to happen, the next question that we have, I'm going to say Chris Paul. Chris Paul is setting the ship for the Spurs. I'm not going to give him an A. I'll give him a B+. B is better than it's. We got to be honest. Him and Wemby are leading the league in assists to point combination between 2 players. And he's been relatively on the court. There's always been this idea that Chris Paul is this injury riddled guy, which isn't wrong, but we're so concerned about getting 20, 30 games as Chris Paul. We've gotten a significant amount of basketball with Chris Paul this season.
He's playing with an injury. His thumb is taped up every game.
So he's playing through injuries. And once again, I think we'll see a different lineup coming on this next half of the season. But from what he's brought us to this point, he's gotten us to a great spot and shown the team how the best way to operate with Wemby, the best way to operate with the point guard, the best, it just opened the eyes for everybody in the front office and the basketball team itself. So I'll give Chris Paul a little shout in there.
I think I'm glad you guys both brought up different unks there, because I think in terms of, doing the job that was expected of them, like doing exactly what they were brought in to do, those two guys, you got to give them high marks, right? And even with the limitations that Chris Paul has as a player, the limitations Harrison Barnes has as a player, you've known what you were going to get from those guys over the, because they've been long established NBA veterans, starter level players on playoff teams, and we've gotten to see the effect that they have had on the court, and we have heard the guys talk about off the court, the example they set, the lessons that they get to learn from those guys, has been great. I've got to give a shout to Jeremy Sohan, who, he got banged up a little bit, playing through some injury here, but I think one of the main reasons that he hasn't been in the starting lineup for these last few games is not because they're like, we don't want you in the starting lineup. It's because they don't have a backup center. And, this is like, I don't think it's necessarily an experiment like, oh, should Jeremy Sohan be our backup center full time instead of the starting point guard? Maybe that would be fun, huh? But the Spurs were in a situation where they didn't have a backup center. And so to have a guy, what I expect from Jeremy Sohan is maybe different from what other people expected coming into the year. I know people hoped that the 3-point shot would come around a bit more. And I think it has, he's been more accurate with it.
Tom, can I tell you something real quick about Jeremy Sohan as of this recording? He does have a higher 3-point percentage than De'Aaron Fox at 34%, and De'Aaron Fox is at 31.9% on the season.
And Sohan has been improving over the course of the year to get to that point, right? In addition to my main expectation for him is that he is going to play some nasty POA defense, be great help side connector, and basically be this amorphous blob of whatever the Spurs need him to be at that moment. And we saw when they played the Hawks, there were points in that game where he was the backup center who was guarding Trae Young by design, right? Problem with that is you don't have a center, right? So he can't do everything all at once, right? But his the way that the team has deployed him, I think, has been fascinating, and his ability to rise to those challenges and meet them with whatever the situation calls for. I've really, really enjoyed watching him play and grow this year.
Yeah. Well, last question for us. And I guess it's a little bit of a yes or no question more than anything, but are we expecting some lineup changes on Thursday night going into the rest of the year? And I guess if so, what do you want to see?
I'm going to say please yes. Please yes. And basically what I want to see, we've been talking about, or I've been talking about this for a little bit now, but I would like to see Chris Paul stabilizing that bench unit. At the very least, even if he stays the nominal starter, right? There needs to be staggering of Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox, and there needs to be staggering of Fox and Wemby. And that means Chris Paul playing the Wemby non-Fox minutes. And, Fox playing opposite that, right? So I think the question then becomes, who do you get in that starting lineup? Steph Castle's been playing great. He's been, shooting the ball accurately, which is important in that starting lineup. He's got great chemistry with Wemby, right? So, and also he plays a point guard position. So more of an obvious, or, like he's a guard, right? He would slot in as a 2 guard next to De'Aaron Fox, right? But also I'm thinking about Jeremy Sohan here. Like, there's different ways you can go with it. I think given Steph Castle's ascendance, the way that he is improving his play with the more he gets, or you'd say he's doing a good job of creation off the bench. He just needs like a little bit of extra, support there. So playing alongside Fox or playing alongside Chris Paul, not just leaving him out there to create everything, having that pressure release. So I think there will have to be a change. I'm hoping, at least. If that doesn't happen, then I don't see, I don't see this season ending the way I would hope it would for the Spurs. Zach, what about you?
I think the change will happen. I don't think it happens right away. I do think there's still a few weeks away from making those drastic changes. And I wouldn't call it drastic, but I'm also looking, once again, I touched on long-term goals 15 minutes ago. And if your long-term plan is to have De'Aaron Fox, Steph Castle, and Wemby run the minutes together, I mean, what are we waiting on? I think that's kind of the mindset I have with it. And especially if Devin as well. So Jeremy as well. I mean, these are guys that you're planning on running this back with next season. Why don't we figure out if this can coexist? We can all coexist on the court together, how we're going to coexist and how we find spots for each other. The only way you do it is on the court. You can watch film all day where someone should be or someone shouldn't be, but these guys had to get out there and do it. So long term, the change has to happen because Chris Paul isn't going to be here long term. But I'm not going to take anything away from what Chris Paul's done this season either. I think this has been kind of a weird. We were so happy to have Chris Paul at the beginning of the season. Now it's like we're already kicking him, making it like no. I think there has to be and we have to ease this and be a business and be a respectable organization as well. I think there's a way to go about it.
Well, I mean, I think kind of contrary to y'all's thoughts that like Chris Paul saying in the starting lineup is us being a respectable organization. It's speaking. There's kind of two things that the Spurs are obviously trying to do. They're trying to win games and they're trying to be a player-centric organization and value the promises that they made to a player. And look, I don't think that in the starting lineup there's probably going to be a change unless someone gets hurt. I think they value their word, and I think when they look around the rest of the league and the rest of the players talking, it's not just going to be about working with Wemby, playing with Wemby. It's going to be, how does the org treat you? And so when they see this person, and this I think speaks volumes more to the Spurs as an organization, because as this team grows in its competitive level, we're definitely going to get ring chasers coming through. We're going to get the Tracy McGrady's coming in. And this speaks volumes to that veteran presence that this team is going to constantly need. That like, this is how we treat the guys that are coming in. We treat them with respect. Promises that we made in free agency, we hold up with. Now, could there be some conversations that they've been having in this All-Star break? Probably. But I think more than anything, and this is sometimes like what makes me happy about being a Spurs fan, is that this is the type of organization that you cheer for. And most of the time I'm not really cheering for the organization these days because of the way players get treated. So I do think that there will be lineup changes overall. I agree that I think that the Fox-Wemby chemistry needs to further develop. I also think that Chris Paul is going to be starting for the foreseeable future with this team. And I think they could figure out both of those kinks as they go along. But once again, this is if we are thinking about the bigger picture, think about the message that this sends to the rest of the league on how they treat players coming in. Especially when you just see what the Dallas Mavericks did to their franchise player. Like, not everybody is going to have like friendly ownership group, friendly bosses. I mean, like truly, like, I think sometimes we get so in the weeds with this stuff, we don't realize that this is like truly just like we're watching people work. Just happens to be in a very public setting, but you know, these guys travel for their job. Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes like they don't feel great, but they still got to work. And so if you're creating a enjoyable work environment and you're upholding your word in a time when there's a lot of undercutting of that, I don't know. I think that speaks volumes. So I'm going to leave it on that. And I will transition us into Austin-Spurs week. There's so much shit going on in town. People go to Joe's. There's like free coffee that they're giving out and manana. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're recording this on Monday. Our own Tom Petrini is going to be slinging coffee over at Houston Tillotson University during the block party. Wednesday, there's the Spurs Cup, which like it's essentially beer drinking party games that they're doing over at Bolden Acres North. And then on Thursday, we got the game against KD and the Suns. Friday, we're playing Cade Cunningham and the Pistons. There's going to be a tailgate at the Downright Hotel before the game on Thursday. There's a cold front coming through, so I have no idea what their contingency plan is for that. But it's going to be a fun week. So before we jump into the Spurs springboarding the end of their rodeo road trip with 2 technical home games here in Austin, Spurs are sitting at 18th in net rating, 16th in offensive rating, 18th in defensive rating, and they have gone up from the last week that we did this from 22nd in three-point percentage shooting to 20th.
Pretty average team.
Basically where we've been. So, but the first game, it's going to be back in on the University of Texas campus where Kevin Durant went to his 1 year. But if you know anything about KD, he actually hangs out in Austin like quite a bit in the off season. He's actually trying to help bring a WNBA team here. We're going to play the Suns, which is a very interesting team that's been said to have some internal strife. They're currently sitting at 20th in net rating, 11th in offensive rating, 27th in defensive rating, and 7th in three-point percentage shooting. So what do you guys got on this one? Zach, I'll let you go first.
If we're looking at playoff picture, big game, playing game, very big. You can gain a full game on somebody. The Suns are 2 games ahead of us in the standings. A full game is a big deal. I think that's it, especially with the nitty gritty that you start getting into this edge of the season. These are games that matter. These are a half a game, yes, but a full game so this is a must-win game for me. This is a 8:30 tip. A lot of emotion going to be into it. Players going to be well rested. I'm curious to see how the guys come out. This is one of those. Are they going to be a little lackadaisical, or is the energy in Austin going to get them going? Because I remember last year, the first game in Austin, they came out a little slow. In the second game, they were on fire, ready to rock and roll. So I'm just curious to see how they come out. This is a must-win game, though. Unfortunately, you get right back into the nitty-gritty, right back into the fire to start this second half of your season because it's a full game to gain.
I am interested to see what the vibe is because I think that the night game on TNT, like with KD in the house, we talked about this with Brandon. Like, it's a huge vote of confidence from the league. That's like, hey, it's cool what you're doing. Let's make more of an event out of it. It's also the kind of game like we saw when they had the Nuggets in town last year, the Jokic tax on the tickets. Like, it may attract more neutral fans, and the Spurs want this to feel like a home game, want it to be a Spurs home game, want it to be a rowdy Spurs home game because, like you said, Zach, this one's real important. Like, if the Spurs are going to make that push, the Suns are one of the teams that you're looking at as like, hey man, where are you going? You know, like Spurs got to go up, somebody else got to come down too. And so if they can put a dent in there, would be very, very important.
This game is also very apropos for a city known for functioning alcoholism that Austin, Texas is, the blackout game. So if you are going to the game, wear black, but don't be drunk enough to where you can't get in the game and you're slurring your words, okay? Like, just want to say that real quick.
And the 8:30 tip doesn't make it easier either, AB. The 8:30 tip, they will be out drinking.
It's 8:30 on a Thursday, which, you know, the culture in Austin is, well, there's always something going on here where people could be drinking, but 8:30 on Thursday is like, people can be pretty lit. What I will say about the Suns, though, man, this team is a team that, like, we should beat, but we seem to, like, never be able to figure out. They are 3-7 in their last 10 games. Not really sure if the All-Star break is a reset for them or if they're all just like, screw this as well. But I am interested to see Wemby and KD guard each other again. So that'll be a fun one. And then I would honestly put the game on Friday night a little more intriguing for me because I've watched a couple of Pistons games. I think they're a pretty interesting team. Cade Cunningham, wide-shouldered point guard of the Pistons coming through, finally healthy and showing people why he was the number one pick. Pistons are sitting at 14th in net rating, 15th in offensive rating, 10th in defensive rating, 13th in three-point percentage shooting, sitting at 6th in the East. And we got Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart, coming to Austin. And for my real heads out there that know, that man loves to pick fights. We have a troll on our team. I just hope that Jeremy Sohan and Isaiah Stewart don't fight each other out on Dirty 6th Street. If they get into it at the Moody Center, so be it. I'm going to enjoy it.
It might carry out to 6th Street, AB. That's what might happen. That fight won't stop. That'll be an all-nighter. Those two guys don't know when to stop talking. That'll be a fun game to watch. Cade Cunningham's great. I think Cade has a little get pack to get it on Wemby. Wemby stuffed into the All-Star game. So this will be the Pistons are fantastic this year. Watching them, they're a fun little watch. You know, the first time they've been above 500 since 2009 at the All-Star break. It's been a while since they've been this good. They got a lot of energy with them. Honestly, these are when the games came out at the beginning of the season, you were like, oh, the Pistons. And then it's like, oh, the Pistons, this is going to be like a fun matchup. We're going to go back and forth. So, you know, Jalen Duran, he's going to be a good matchup with Wemby. I think they're going to try to go head up. I don't know. We'll see. This is going to be a good back and forth. They should go 2-0, though, boys.
I'm hoping, but I don't know about should. I think I'm going to guess that they will, but this Pistons team deserves a ton of credit, man. Like, they're putting stuff together this year in a way that is encouraging, I think, for all fans of rebuilding teams. That, you know, they've been stuck in the doldrums for so long, but they've got their picks. And a lot of their best players, like guy like Cade, guy like Jaden Ivey, coming out of school, it was like, will this guy ever get a jump shot? And they're both shooting the ball well this year. And they're physical, they're gritty, they're playing Pistons basketball. Just for 2025. I think that's very, very cool. And yeah, I'm excited to see that game.
Just to note, Jaden Ivey is not playing. He is out for the next 4 to 6 months. It really sucks. He's an incredibly fun player to watch. But Jalen Duran is also really awesome. They were actually a team that I saw at Summer League a few years ago, so I have like a little more affinity towards this Pistons team. But with all that being said, Zach, you already said you're thinking they're going 2-0 in the next week. Tom, what do you got?
I mean, a less confident 2-0, a more hopeful 2-0. Need to beat the Suns. Absolutely need to beat the Suns.
Fellas, it's like my conspiracy theory with TNT. I don't know how much I believe it, but I'm going to go with 2-0 as well. I'm going to join my boys on this ride this week. It's Austin-Spurs week. I think the Austin crowd does get up for these games. They are a lot of fun. We'll see you guys out there. If you like the podcast, obviously like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your enemies out there. And, Tom, what do you got to say signing off?
Watch our show with Brandon James, which is genuinely like one of my favorite things that I've done journalistically in this space. And these guys did a bang up job as well. And speaking of bang up jobs, Daytona 500 was a little disappointing and rain delayed, but we're going to another really fun track in Atlanta next week. So, your next 37 Sundays are taken care of. We got NASCAR Cup Series racing, baby.
This is where Tom tells us he's got a side podcast, NASCAR podcast, he hadn't told us about.
Which I should get a racing podcast.
But my final thing is Area 51 is an Area 512. I saw that nice sign, and I'm going to repeat it on here. So we're going to have a good week here in Austin with Spurs basketball.
Hey, find us out in the streets this week. We are excited to meet more folks out there that listen and watch this podcast. And with that, we'll talk to you all after the Austin games. Peace.